Welcome back to the Deep Dive, the place where we don't just skim the headlines, we really dig into the sources.
That's right.
We take the world's most critical developments, from national security shifts all the way to cosmic mysteries, and distill them into immediate strategic knowledge for you.
And today's deep dive is structured, well, almost like a highly customized strategic news briefing. We've synthesized sources covering 11 major developments. We're talking security, politics, global trade, workforce dynamics, even science. Our mission is to move quickly, but, deliberately. We want to make sure we elaborate on the precise, factual specifics, and maybe most importantly, the implications of each story.
Absolutely. Think of this as your essential shortcut to being truly well-informed on the complexities of today's world. We're going to spend some real time on the details that matter most.
Okay.
Let's start with what feels like the most serious development hitting the domestic sphere this week. A major transnational security threat. We have to begin with the urgent and, frankly, disturbing news following that old Delhi car blast near the Red Fort. An attack that tragically killed a dozen people.
Yeah, terrible.
And the investigation has moved incredibly rapidly, uncovering evidence of a major, quite sophisticated terror plot that goes far beyond that single incident.
Yeah, that first step, identifying the bomber via DNA testing as Umar Unabi, that was critical for the authorities.
Right.
Because pinpointing the perpetrator immediately shifts the focus, from who did it to who orchestrated the whole operation.
And the more investigators dug, the more complex this whole thing revealed itself to be. It seems this was never planned as just an isolated blast.
No, not at all.
The car explosion, it seems, was intended to be merely the opening act of a broader, multi-phase plot.
Right, involving multiple vehicle-borne IEDs, improvised explosive devices designed to create chaos, and then followed by rifle assaults.
Targeting first responders and survivors, presumably.
That's the likely scenario, yeah. The scope of the plot is what's really chilling here. Umar and his module, they were highly organized, very operational. They procured 3 different vehicles for this mission.
3 vehicles.
3. One, the I-20, that's the one that exploded in Old Delhi. A second, a red Ford EcoSport, was successfully located by authorities down in Faridabad.
Okay, so 2 accounted for. But here is where the immediate threat, it remains active. The 3rd vehicle, a Brezza, is still missing.
It's still out there.
A Balor alert, be on the lookout, has been issued for this vehicle.
Yeah.
And given the complexity of the plot, the materials recovered.
Yeah.
Well, the worst-case scenario is that this missing Brezza might also be armed.
And potentially awaiting a target. Yeah, and the targets, they weren't random either. Well, the initial blast was, urban chaos.
Right.
The plot explicitly extended to Ayodhya. They were planning a significant strike there on November 25th.
November 25th. Why that date?
It coincides with the symbolic hoisting of a saffron flag atop the newly constructed Ram Temple.
Maximum symbolic impact.
Exactly. And aimed at communal polarization. The technical details of the explosives are also quite telling. Authorities confirmed collecting materials that included a mixture of ammonium nitrate and RDX.
RDX. That's serious.
It is. It's a highly potent, often military-grade explosive combination. Using RDX indicates access to, sophisticated supply chains and a significant command structure backing the cell.
And that command structure, that leads us to the transnational dimension, doesn't it? Which seems the most alarming part of this.
Absolutely. The conspiracy has been traced back chronologically to 2022.
2022, wow.
Yeah, so this wasn't some spontaneous act. This was long-term planning orchestrated by a handler based in Turkey, known only by the codename Yukasa.
Yukasa, from Turkey. That's a severe vulnerability then. I mean, if the plot was actively being orchestrated and traced back to 2022, what does that say about maybe the intelligence failure in neutralizing Yukasa or disrupting this supply chain sooner?
So that's the question, isn't it?
The fact that a module successfully procured and armed 3 vehicles in urban settings, it does highlight a potential lapse in counterterrorism monitoring.
The security establishment certainly views it as a major internal challenge. Home Minister Amit Shah immediately convened high-level meetings. He directed agencies to pursue every single culprit involved.
Strong words used.
Very promising the full wrath of investigative bodies and the prompt intervention of the National Investigation Agency, the NIA, taking over the probe that confirms this is being treated as a high-priority, foreign-linked terror angle.
And the response was immediate, right across the board.
It was. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was actually in Bhutan at the time, was kept informed. He expressed solidarity, promised swift justice. Even President Jupati Murmu contacted the Home Minister about it while she was on a visit to Angola.
So top-level attention.
Definitely. The subsequent review sessions were exhaustive. Included the Home Secretary, the Intelligence Bureau Director, the Delhi Police Commissioner, the NIA Director General, and crucially, the Director General of Police for Jammu and Kashmir joined virtually.
Ah, the J&K link.
That involvement underscores the deep-seated concern that these transnational networks often use operatives or structures that bridge security gaps between different regions,
I see.
So the coordinated, high-level reaction really reflects the gravity of this foreign link and the profound symbolic threat represented by targeting Ayodhya. And of course, the hunt for that missing Bresa remains priority number one.
Okay, from that immediate national security crisis, let's pivot to the political temperature. Specifically, the highly anticipated results, or rather projections, coming out of the Bihar Assembly elections. The exit polls released on November 12th painted a highly consistent picture, even if the margins varied.
Yeah, the overarching consensus among the major pollsters like Axis My India and today's Chanakya, it does suggest a victory for the National Democratic Alliance, the NDA.
Okay.
However, there's a key data point that immediately stands out. The Rashtriya Janata Dal, the RJD that's the main opposition party, is expected to emerge as the single largest party.
Interesting. So NDA wins overall, but RJD gets the most seats individually.
That's the projection, yeah. It sets up a potentially interesting power dynamic even if the NDA secures the majority. And just to remind you, the Bihar Assembly has 243 total seats. You need 122 for a simple majority.
Right, 122. Let's get into the hard numbers then, starting with, say, the Axis My India projections.
Yeah.
What do they find?
Okay, Axis My India forecasts the NDA securing a comfortable range, actually. 121 to 141 seats. That puts them right at or just past that majority mark.
And the opposition, the Mahagathbandhan.
They're projected to win 98 to 118 seats, so a clear gap there, according to Axis.
Okay. And digging into the specific party breakdowns, that tells us more about the internal balance within the alliances, right?
Absolutely. The RJD, as we said, is forecast to capture the largest individual tally, 67 to 76 seats. Meanwhile, within the NDA, the incumbent JDU, Nitish Kumar's party,
Janata Dal United, yeah.
is projected to get 56 to 62 seats, and the BJP slightly behind that with 50 to 56 seats.
So, RJD largest, then JDU, then BJP. Interesting distribution. What about vote share? Was it close?
Razor thin, according to Axis My India, suggests the election was decided by small margins in quite a few constituencies. They put it at 43% for the NDA versus 41% for the Mahagathbandhan.
Wow, just 2%.
Yeah, and it's also notable that Yansaraj, Prashant Kishore's party.
Right, the high-profile new entrant.
Despite that high-profile campaign, they're predicted to be limited to just 0 to 2 seats. Although they did manage to capture a respectable 4% vote share overall.
That 4% could have made a difference in some of those close contests, I suppose.
It certainly could have, yeah. But Axis My India uncovered a huge gender dynamic. The NDA is projected to receive a higher female vote share, 45%, compared to only 41% of the male vote.
Women favoring the NDA more.
Significantly more. Conversely, the Mahagathbandhan attracted 42% male support, but only 40% female support. This really suggests women voters might have been a decisive factor favoring the NDA's continuation in power.
That's fascinating. What about leadership preference? Who did people want as chief minister?
Well, this is another interesting point. Despite the incumbent alliance likely winning, 34% of respondents favored Tejaswi Yadav of the RJD as the next chief minister.
Okay.
Only 22% preferred the incumbent, Nitish Kumar. That gap between personal popularity or preference and the likely party mandate is quite striking.
It really is. Now, you mentioned today's Chanakya as well. Did their poll align with Axis My India?
Broadly in direction, yes, but the margin was very different. While Axis My India showed a potentially close race, today's Chanakya provided a much more decisive forecast.
How decisive?
They predicted a significantly stronger mandate for the NDA, 160 seats plus or minus 12, and only 77 for the Mahagathbandhan plus or minus 12.
Wow, that's a huge difference in the margin compared to Axis, 160 versus maybe 121.
A very wide variance, yeah. It shows just how difficult polling in Bihar can be.
Right.
But critically, the direction of the win, the likely winner, remained consistent across both major polls.
And was that consistency reflected in other polls too?
Generally, yes. Other major pollsters like Matriz, Dainik Bhaskar, PMark, they similarly projected NDA majorities, though the ranges varied widely, from about 130 seats all the way up to 167.
So the collective consensus across, what, 9 exit polls, you said?
9 major ones, yeah. The consensus indicates a clear NDA edge, even if those projected margins swing quite a bit.
And what about the election itself? Any notable aspects?
Beyond the projections, the election itself set records. The state recorded its highest turnout since 1951.
Highest since 51. That's significant.
It hit an impressive 67.14%. And tying back to that gender split in the polls, the fact that women actually outnumbered men in participation, despite having fewer registered voters overall, that highlights some sophisticated mobilization efforts by all parties.
Definitely. And this election was seen as a big test for Nitish Kumar, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It was largely framed as a key referendum on him. He's Bihar's longest-serving chief minister, remember, testing his ability to maintain power after, several years of alliance shifts and changes.
So the exit polls suggest continuity, but maybe with a strengthened opposition.
That's the takeaway. Continuity for the NDA government, but with the RJD firmly cemented as the strongest single opposition force within the assembly.
Okay, moving from state politics now to national institutional accountability. The Supreme Court has issued a major directive aimed squarely at tackling internal delays and boosting public trust in the justice system.
Yes, this is quite significant. The core mandate is structural. All high courts across the country must now publicly disclose the time taken by judges to pronounce verdicts after they've reserved cases for judgment.
Public disclosure of judgment timelines. What prompted this specific intervention?
It was triggered by a case that, frankly, exposed an alarming failure of timely justice. The Supreme Court bench, led by Justice Surya Kant, who is the Chief Justice of India designate, by the way, and Justice Joy Mallya Bakshi.
Okay.
They heard a plea from 4 life convicts. These individuals from scheduled tribes and other backward classes had their appeals reserved by the Jharkhand High Court.
Reserved, meaning the hearing was done, just waiting for the verdict.
Exactly. Reserved for judgment. And they waited for a staggering 2 to 3 years without a verdict being delivered.
2 to 3 years. Just waiting for a judgment after the case was heard.
That's right. Which is fundamentally outside what's considered standard judicial procedure. While the convention, the unwritten rule, suggests judgment should ideally be pronounced within 2 to 6 months of being reserved.
Right. Months, not years.
The reality, as the court itself noted, is that delays often extend well beyond a year. Could be due to workload, case complexity, scheduling conflicts, various reasons.
But years seems excessive.
Absolutely. And this is where Justice Kant's commentary was critical.
Yeah.
He stressed that judicial reforms have to actively meet public expectations. He was quite adamant that citizens shouldn't just know the result, but they should also have transparency on the process. Meaning how many judgments each judge has reserved, how many they've actually pronounced, and, crucially, the time taken to then upload those judgments online for everyone to see.
So this goes way beyond just addressing delays in one specific case.
Oh, much beyond. It's about trying to restore the credibility of the entire institution when it comes to timely delivery of justice.
And what's the mechanism for this transparency? How will it actually work?
Well, this is fascinating. It's not just about, say, filing a written report somewhere. Justice Bagchi specifically mandated that High Court websites should feature live, trackable dashboards.
Dashboards, like data visualization.
Exactly. Visually displaying the status of these reservation and pronouncement timelines. So you, as a member of the public, could theoretically go online and see how long cases have been pending judgment before a particular judge or bench.
That's radical transparency. That kind of public metric puts pressure on judges in a way internal memos probably never could.
That seems to be the intent. The court has ordered a specific reporting period to get this started. They're demanding reports detailing the mechanisms for publishing these dates, the pronouncement intervals, and the uploading practices for all judgments reserved after January 31st, 2025, and pronounced up to October 31st, 2025.
So establishing a clear baseline for performance measurement going forward.
Precisely.
Now, this definitely raises that classic tension, doesn't it? Between judicial independence judges needing autonomy to deliberate complex matters without undue pressure and measurable performance metrics.
Absolutely. The court actually acknowledged that. They recognized that judges might feel some, perhaps, apprehension about revealing this data. They might fear adverse consequences from a, hyper-scrutinizing public or media.
Understandable concern.
But the justices insisted that this kind of frank disclosure is necessary to evaluate performance consistently and to establish broad institutional guidelines. They were careful to clarify that the intention isn't micromanagement.
Okay.
It's about institutionalizing accountability to ensure timely justice. By setting up these dashboards, the Supreme Court is pushing for a potentially profound cultural shift, actively trying to protect litigants against their cases being held in a sort of ghost reservation limbo for years, and reinforcing public trust through radical, measurable openness.
Okay, now let's shift focus quite dramatically to economic resilience and strategic trade policy. India has just approved a substantial, really comprehensive financial intervention, the Export Promotion Mission, or EPM, and the outlay is massive. 25,060 crore.
Huge number.
And this seems like a direct, almost urgent response to significant trade friction, specifically coming from the U.S.
Yeah, the context for this mission is absolutely paramount. You have to remember, Washington imposed that steep 50% duty on a range of Indian goods back on August 27th.
50% tariff. Ouch.
Exactly, and that tariff shock was immediate and measurable. It cut Indian exports to the U.S. by nearly 12% in the month of September alone, just 1 month.
Wow, 12% drop in a month.
Okay, so the EPM is essentially the government's multi-year protective shield against this kind of shock. It spans 6 financial years, and it's designed to consolidate a lot of older, maybe fragmented export schemes into one unified, outcome-based framework.
Okay, outcome-based. Let's break down the mechanics of this ambitious mission. I understand it's divided into 2 distinct sub-schemes.
That's right. The first is called Niryat Protsahan. It's allocated 10,401 crore, and it focuses purely on financial enablement. Think of it as making trade finance more affordable.
Especially for smaller players.
Exactly. Specifically for MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises, who often really struggle to compete on credit terms in the international market.
So what does Niryat Protsahan actually do? Lower interest rates.
It includes critical elements like interest subvention, which is basically the government subsidizing interest payments to make loans cheaper. It also includes collateral guarantees, reducing the risk for lenders, and interestingly, specialized credit cards designed specifically for e-commerce exporters.
Recognizing the rise of online exports.
Precisely. They operate differently than traditional exporters. So this scheme provides the liquidity and the credit security that MSMEs need to actually take on and scale up their export orders.
Okay, that's the financial side. What about the second scheme? Niryat Disha, I think it's called?
Yes, Niryat Disha. And this is actually the larger, more strategic piece, allocated 14,659 crore. This focuses entirely on non-financial enablers. This is where India is investing in sort of market positioning and capability building.
Non-financial?
Yeah.
Like what? Marketing? Logistics?
Exactly those things. Niryat Disha covers initiatives like international branding campaigns, helping Made in India gain traction, advanced packaging support, crucial logistics support, and, importantly, reimbursement for inland transport costs, which can be a significant burden for exporters far from ports.
Okay.
It also funds sophisticated trade intelligence initiatives, helping exporters navigate complex international markets, understand regulations, compliance requirements, things like that.
So dismantling those structural barriers, high compliance costs,
Yep.
logistical disadvantages that have maybe historically held back faster export growth.
That's the goal. These elements aim to do just that.
And is this mission targeting specific industries? Or is it broad-based?
No, it's highly targeted, actually. It seems to be hitting the panic button for the industries that were hardest hit by those U.S. tariff escalations. Priority support is specifically earmarked for textiles, leather, gems and jewelry, engineering goods, and marine products.
The ones feeling the most pain from the 50% duty.
Makes sense. And all of this is intended to be implemented via a dedicated digital platform managed by the Directorate General of Foreign Trade, aiming for streamlined applications and, hopefully, swift disbursement of funds.
This really represents a genuine strategic pivot, then, towards economic resilience.
It does. Commerce officials explicitly stated the mission is designed not just to sustain existing export orders and protect employment, which is crucial,
Right, the immediate goal.
but also, critically, to enable expansion into new geographies outside the American market. It's an acknowledgement that they absolutely must diversify trade partners to buffer against these kinds of unpredictable tariff shocks.
And speaking of that shock, this EPM was announced amid ongoing, pretty tense bilateral trade negotiations with the U.S., right?
Yes. President Trump has apparently suggested that the two nations are pretty close to a fair deal and that maybe these tariffs might eventually be lowered.
Maybe. But right now, the short-term economic data seems to demand this immediate action regardless of future possibilities.
The need is absolutely urgent. Look at the numbers. Despite that U.S. tariff shock, India's overall exports did manage to rise 6.74% in September, reaching $36.38 billion. That sounds okay, right?
Rise.
But imports surged even more dramatically. They jumped 16.6%.
Oof, okay, that's not good.
No, and this is the crucial number. That surge in imports widened the trade deficit, the gap between imports and exports, to $31.15 billion just for September.
$31 billion.
Yeah.
More imports than exports in 1 month.
Yeah. For our listener, that means India essentially bought $31 billion more from the world than it sold in September. That's the highest monthly deficit in over a year.
Wow. And cumulatively.
Over the April-September period, the first half of the financial year, the deficit stands at a whopping $154.99 billion.
Good grief.
Yeah.
That's a massive strain on national reserves.
Huge strain. And it underscores precisely why this comprehensive export promotion mission isn't just a stimulus package. It's being framed as an emergency measure for both protection and strategic adaptation in the face of global trade volatility.
Okay, staying firmly rooted in economic strategy here, India has taken another major step towards, well, industrial self-reliance. This time focusing on the foundational inputs of modern technology, critical minerals.
Yes, the Union Cabinet approved rationalizing the royalty rates for 4 specific minerals: graphite, cesium, rubidium, and zirconium. This happened on November 12th.
Rationalizing royalty rates. Why these 4, and why now?
Well, the strategic rationale couldn't be clearer, and it really aligns with that broader global geopolitical competition framework we keep talking about. This move is aimed squarely at reducing India's import dependency, enhancing supply chain resilience, and quite directly countering China's global monopoly and its export restrictions in some of these critical mineral sectors.
So it's about securing supply lines.
Absolutely. And crucially, unlocking domestic production of these 4 minerals is also expected to facilitate the exploration and extraction of associated minerals often found alongside them, things like lithium, tungsten, niobium, rare earth elements.
All vital for green energy and defense tech.
Exactly. The change in the royalty structure itself is, well, it's a bit technically dense, but it's essential for anyone interested in mining investment in India. For graphite specifically, the royalty shifts from a simple per-ton basis.
Meaning a fixed charge per ton mined, regardless of quality or price.
Right. It shifts from that to an ad valorem system.
Ad valorem, based on value.
Based on the value, yeah.
Oh.
It reflects price variations in the market. This is a massive shift for graphite. High-grade graphite, defined as 80% or more carbon content, is now charged 2% of the average sale price, the ASP.
Yeah.
Other lower grades are charged 4% of the ASP.
So if the global price of high-grade graphite doubles, the government's royalty take also doubles. That ensures fairness, captures more market value for the state, though it does add a layer of market risk for the mining company, I suppose.
It does. It aligns incentives and risks more closely with the market. For the other 3 minerals, the rates are simpler. Zirconium is set at a low 1% of ASP. Cesium and rubidium are both set at 2% of ASP each.
So keeping them generally low to encourage exploration.
That seems to be the strategy. It aligns these crucial rates within that sort of 2% to 4% range applied to most other critical minerals. The idea is to ensure financial viability for miners and encourage aggressive bidding and exploration when blocks are auctioned. These amendments will be officially incorporated into the Mines and Minerals Act.
So why are these 4 minerals, graphite, cesium, rubidium, zirconium, specifically getting this high-level policy intervention now? What makes them so important?
Because they are, quite literally, indispensable for modern tech and defense infrastructure, and India relies very heavily on foreign supply for them currently.
Okay, give us some examples. Graphite.
Graphite is absolutely essential for electric vehicle batteries. It's a major component of the anode. And India currently imports a staggering 60% of its graphite supply, despite actually having 9 operational mines already.
60% import dependency. Wow, okay, zirconium.
Zirconium is vital for nuclear energy. It's used in fuel rods. Also crucial in aerospace and high-tech manufacturing because of its superior corrosion resistance and its ability to withstand extremely high temperatures.
Right, and cesium. I know that one's linked to timekeeping.
Exactly. Cesium is the standard for atomic clocks, which underpin global GPS systems, financial networks, and all sorts of precision instruments. Ultra-stable timekeeping.
Okay, and rubidium.
Rubidium is critical for specialized glass used in things like night vision devices and also in fiber optics for high-speed communication.
So yeah, foundational stuff across multiple high-tech sectors.
Absolutely. And the government's messaging here is crystal clear. Increased domestic production of these materials will not only secure strategic supply chains, but it's also expected to create specialized, high-value jobs and directly support India's massive green energy transition goals, especially with EVs and potentially nuclear power.
And is this policy change already translating into action on the ground?
It seems so. The government announced the sixth tranche of critical mineral auctions back in September, and that tranche specifically included 5 graphite blocks, 2 rubidium blocks, and single blocks of cesium and zirconium.
Ah, so they're putting the blocks up for auction right alongside changing the royalty rules.
Precisely. By aligning these royalty rates with market realities just as new blocks become available, the government is deliberately trying to incentivize investment and exploration. It's positioning India to become a more resilient and hopefully more independent player in this critical global energy and technology transformation.
All right, let's look inward now at the Indian workforce. We're moving to the data from the highly anticipated 13th India Skills Report. And the findings seem overwhelmingly positive, suggesting India is making a decisive shift toward what the report calls a skill-first economy.
Yeah, the core finding is pretty impressive. National employability, it's the percentage of youth considered ready for the job market, has risen again. It's up to 56.35% for 2026, which is an increase from 54.81% the previous year.
Okay, a steady climb.
And this report, which is quite comprehensive, surveyed over 100,000 candidates and 1,000 employers. It firmly positions India as a, and I quote, preferred global source of skilled talent.
High praise. And what's driving this improved preparedness? Is it general education or something specific?
It seems the primary driver isn't just general education, it's the rapid acceleration of AI integration across the board.
Artificial intelligence.
Yes, India now apparently accounts for 16% of the world's AI talent pool.
16% globally. That's huge.
It is, and that figure is projected to grow substantially. They estimate 1.25 million AI professionals in India by 2027. We should probably pause on that number for a second. 1.25 million. That's a massive projected shift in the national skill base towards AI.
Absolutely. Is AI becoming a sort of baseline competency then?
It looks like it, especially in digital roles. The data shows over 90% of employees are now actively using generative AI tools in their daily work, just using them routinely.
90%, wow.
Furthermore, AI-based recruitment methods have been adopted by 70% of IT firms and about 50% of BFSI organizations. That's banking, financial services, and insurance.
So AI is changing how people get hired too.
Definitely. And that technological integration is fueling growth, especially as these kinds of jobs decentralize out into Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, not just the major metros.
Now, the report highlighted a major, really positive milestone in inclusion, didn't it? Something about female employability.
Yes, this was a big one. For the first time ever in this report series, female employability, pegged at 54%, has actually surpassed male employability, which stands at 51.5%.
Female employability higher than male. That's quite a turnaround. As a listener, I'm immediately wondering, is this seen as a permanent structural shift? Or could it be, say, a temporary anomaly linked to hybrid work models?
Well, the analysis in the report suggests it's more likely a structural shift. They attribute it largely to the rise of those hybrid work models you mentioned, but also to more accessible online learning platforms.
Right.
These things drastically reduce geographical barriers and seem to be increasing female participation in the skilled workforce significantly. It feels like an indicator of deeper social change, supported by technological flexibility.
Okay. And are we seeing market demand keeping pace with this improved supply of skills? What about hiring intent?
We're seeing a significant jump there, too. Hiring intent for the upcoming fiscal year, 2026-27, stands at 40%. That's a sharp increase from 29% the previous year.
40% hiring intent. That's strong.
Very strong. And specific sectors are emerging as massive job drivers. BFSI and fintech, for instance, are expected to generate around 250,000 new jobs by 2030. That's an impressive annual growth rate of about 8.7% projected for that sector alone.
250,000 jobs just in BFSI fintech. And what about the nature of work? Is the gig economy playing a role?
A rapidly maturing one, yes. The gig and freelance workforce in India is projected to reach 23.5 million people by 2030.
23.5 million.
Which means roughly, maybe 1 in 4 new workers joining the workforce might be in flexible or freelance roles by then. Project-based hiring alone spiked by 38% just last year.
38% growth in project hiring. Wow.
Yeah. Now, permanent roles, full-time employment, they still dominate, accounting for about 72% of the workforce. But flexible roles have climbed noticeably to 16%. It shows a definite measurable structural shift in how work is being organized and executed in India.
And this growth in skills and demand, it's clearly being supported by policy and education initiatives too, right?
Absolutely. The report mentions things like the AICTEs, that's the All India Council for Technical Education, their Project Practice initiative, and the creation of dedicated AI and climate cells within educational bodies. They're actively working to modernize technical education through much closer industry collaboration and more project-based learning.
So making education more relevant to immediate industry needs.
Exactly. The focus now is firmly on things like co-designed curricula, where industry helps shape what's taught, and stackable credentials, allowing people to build skills incrementally. It's all about ensuring education directly meets the skills demanded by the job market now.
Okay. And the report had a kind of philosophical takeaway, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It concludes with a, I thought, quite powerful note that sums up the ethos of this whole shift. It says, the future of work is not defined by how much technology can do, but by how much humans can grow alongside it.
Humans growing alongside tech.
Yeah. It emphasizes that the true competitive advantage isn't going to be the technology itself, because tech diffuses quickly. The advantage lies in the human capacity for rapid adaptation, continuous learning, and skill acquisition. That, according to the report, is the real essence of this emerging skill-first economy.
All right, moving now to international policy and the always dynamic world of migration. The Trump administration has unveiled what looks like a significant shift in its H-1B skilled worker visa policy.
Yes, a very interesting development. This new approach seems to emphasize temporary knowledge transfer rather than enabling long-term reliance on foreign labor.
Knowledge transfer. How does that work in practice?
Well, the strategy, as outlined, is explicitly designed to bring skilled overseas workers to the U.S., but only for limited periods, typically cited as 3 to 7 years. And here's the key part. They come with a mandated function.
Which is?
They must actively train American employees in these high-skill industries before they are required to return to their home countries. It's not just about filling a job vacancy temporarily.
It's about using the visa holder as a trainer for domestic workers.
Exactly. It's a mandated training role embedded within the visa conditions.
And who's championing this? What's the rationale given?
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been quite vocal about it. He called the initiative a home run for American industrial sectors like semiconductors and precision manufacturing.
A home run. Why?
Well, he argued that the U.S. simply cannot instantly rebuild crucial industrial capabilities in these complex fields without sort of an injection of external expertise in the short term.
So it's a pragmatic acknowledgement of current skill gaps in the U.S. workforce?
It appears so. Bessent stressed that the policy doesn't intend to displace American workers in the long run. Instead, it recognizes that certain highly specialized jobs, he mentioned advanced shipbuilding, semiconductor fabrication as examples, simply cannot be filled domestically yet. So by temporarily using these foreign specialists, the stated goal is to accelerate the rebuilding of domestic capability and ensure that U.S. workers can eventually take over these critical roles, leading to long-term American independence in these sectors.
This strategy seems to align directly with President Trump's broader vision of, what was it, parallel prosperity.
Yes, and also with the general efforts towards economic repatriation, bringing manufacturing and jobs back to the U.S., Bessent also mentioned, interestingly, that the administration is simultaneously considering a $2,000 tariff rebate for American families earning under $100,000 a year.
Connecting trade policy and this visa shift directly to household benefits.
Right, explicitly linking these industrial and migration policies back to potential benefits for working-class households.
So what does this tactical shift in H-1B policy really tell us?
Well, I think it reveals the administration's primary industrial priority right now. It's a pretty clear departure from some of the earlier, more purely restrictive immigration measures we saw.
More pragmatic, perhaps.
Arguably, yes. It seems to be trying to reconcile those nationalist economic goals, rebuilding domestic capacity, with the inescapable reality of global skill flows. By framing these H-1B visas specifically as a tool for accelerated domestic training, they're effectively repurposing the visa.
From just filling jobs to actively building skills.
Exactly. Repurposing it as an essential component of their industrial policy, ensuring that the foreign skill serves a defined, long-term domestic goal of eventual self-sufficiency. It's a very strategic strategic framing.
Okay, let's shift back now to immediate security challenges closer to home again. Indian airports are apparently dealing with a rising and extremely frustrating operational issue, an increased frequency of bomb hoaxes.
Yes, these false alarms, while they often seem frivolous in their intent, are causing serious strain on resources and operational efficiency at airports across the country.
What's the actual operational impact of a single hoax call?
Well, it's pretty devastating and expensive, even if it turns out to be false. It forces security personnel to remain on constant high alert, obviously. But more than that, it triggers a full-scale emergency response every single time a call comes in.
Meaning evacuations, bomb squads.
Exactly. Mandatory passenger evacuations from terminals or aircraft, deployment of specialized bomb disposal squads, and the inevitable suspension or delay of flight schedules. All of this causes millions in financial losses just from operational disruption, not to mention immense anxiety among the traveling public.
And what are the motives behind these calls? Is it just random mischief?
Authorities have noted that many calls stem from, well, relatively simple motives. You get pranksters just causing trouble. You get disgruntled individuals, maybe an employee or an unhappy passenger. Or sometimes people seeking harassment or personal revenge against someone else.
But regardless of the potentially frivolous intent,
Exactly. Regardless of the intent, given the catastrophic consequences of missing a real danger, every single threat must be treated as genuine until it's definitively proven otherwise. There's no other option, really.
and that necessary policy of maximum vigilance, that just multiplies the burden on airport staff exponentially, doesn't it?
Exponentially. The Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, BCAS, has directed airports to strengthen surveillance measures and improve coordination with local police forces to try and trace calls faster.
Are they looking at technology too?
Yes, they're emphasizing investments in enhanced screening technologies, maybe better ways to detect real threats faster, and also conducting more rapid response drills designed to minimize the disruption time when a hoax does occur.
But the focus seems to have clearly shifted towards deterrence as well, trying to stop the calls in the first place.
Absolutely. Authorities are intensifying legal action and publicizing it. They're stressing that making a bomb threat is a serious criminal offense, punishable by imprisonment and significant fines, and they've highlighted several arrests that have already been made in recent cases.
Trying to publicly demonstrate that the consequences far outweigh whatever satisfaction someone gets from making a prank call.
That's the idea. This whole situation really highlights a delicate balancing act for security infrastructure everywhere. On one hand, while you never want them, these hoaxes do provide an unwanted, stressful opportunity to test preparedness and response times.
A live drill, essentially.
In a way, yes, but on the other hand, they simultaneously divert crucial resources. Personnel, equipment, attention away from monitoring for potential genuine risks.
It's a dangerous distraction.
It can be. Experts argue that beyond just enforcement, investing in smarter, maybe data-driven detection systems could be crucial. Systems that could potentially help distinguish credible threats from clearly frivolous ones more quickly, reducing the need for these constant large-scale evacuations that paralyze airport operations. Finding that balance between maximum vigilance and operational efficiency is the key challenge.
Okay, now a pivot to the world of sports, where a major international tour is facing, well, potential collapse due to extreme security concerns. Sri Lanka's cricket tour of Pakistan was thrown into chaos following that tragic suicide attack in Islamabad on November 11th, 2025.
Yeah, a terrible incident. The attack, which, as you said, tragically killed 12 people and injured 27, occurred just hours before the scheduled opening one-day international match in nearby Rawalpindi.
Did the match go ahead?
Surprisingly, yes, that first ODI did go ahead as scheduled later that day, but the psychological toll on the visiting Sri Lankan squad was immediate and understandably profound.
I can imagine. So what was the players' reaction?
Well, reports indicate that multiple Sri Lankan players expressed a strong desire to return home immediately. They cited serious safety concerns, fearing for their security given the proximity and scale of the violence. Completely understandable reaction.
Absolutely. So did Sri Lanka Cricket support their players' concerns?
Well, this is where it gets controversial. Sri Lanka Cricket, the SLC, issued a very strongly worded directive that has generated significant debate. They essentially insisted the team remain in Pakistan and complete the tour as planned.
They ordered them to stay, despite the attack and player fears.
That's what the reports indicate, yes. It raises a critical question, doesn't it? Isn't potentially forcing players to stay in a volatile environment a major breach of the governing body's duty of care towards its athletes.
It certainly seems questionable. Was there a threat attached to that directive?
There was. The institutional commitment was made very clear in the warning issued by the SLC. They stated that any player or staff member who defied the instruction to stay would face a formal review upon return to Sri Lanka.
A formal review, meaning disciplinary action.
That's the strong implication, yes. And they added that replacements would be dispatched immediately to Pakistan to ensure the series continued without disruption, regardless of who stayed or left. It highlights the specific risks the SLC seems willing to accept to uphold its bilateral institutional commitments.
So what happened next? Did Pakistan offer assurances?
Yes, in an attempt to stabilize the situation, the PCB chairman, Mohsin Naqvi, who interestingly also serves the dual role as Pakistan's interior minister.
Right, head of cricket and internal security.
He personally met with the Sri Lankan squad at their hotel in Islamabad. He offered reassurances and visibly tightened the already high-level security details surrounding the team.
And the schedule, did it change?
The schedule was revised slightly, but the location wasn't. The second and third ODIs are now mandated to remain in Rawalpindi, the city near where the attack happened, scheduled for November 14th and 16th.
Wow. This whole situation must instantly revive those traumatic memories of the 2009 Lahore attack, right? When the Sri Lankan team bus itself was targeted by terrorists.
Absolutely. That attack led to a near decade-long hiatus of international cricket in Pakistan. While Pakistan has successfully hosted several tours recently, rebuilding trust. This Islamabad bombing just underscores the fragility of that trust and the ever-present security concerns.
It's a really difficult situation.
It is. The tension is palpable. On one side, you have the need to safeguard individual player welfare and mental health, which surely should be paramount. On the other, you have the pressure to honor institutional commitments and maintain bilateral relations.
And in this case, the SLC has clearly resolved that tension in favor of the institution.
It appears so, yes. At a potentially high psychological cost to its players, caught in a very difficult and frightening situation.
Okay, let's stay with cricket governance, but shift focus to a major accountability move by the Board of Control for Cricket in India, the BCCI. This concerns some of its biggest veteran stars.
Yes, the BCCI has issued a pretty clear directive. Senior players Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma must participate in domestic cricket if they want to be considered for future selection in the one-day international or ODI format.
Right, because both players have formally retired from Test matches and T20 internationals, haven't they?
Exactly. But they remain absolutely integral to India's 50-over format plans, particularly with the next ODI World Cup looming in 2027.
So the directive comes just ahead of India's upcoming ODI series against South Africa.
Correct. The BCCI is essentially emphasizing that these senior players must demonstrate match readiness and sharpness by playing domestic cricket first. Specifically, they've pointed to participation in the Vijay Hazare Trophy, which is India's premier domestic 50-over competition.
Okay. And what's the status of the players regarding this mandate? Have they agreed?
Well, the status varies, which highlights the impact of this directive. Rohit Sharma, according to reports, has already confirmed his participation to the Mumbai Cricket Association. He's even indicated he might be available for the Syed Mushtaq Ali T20 tournament before that.
So Rohit is complying. What about Kohli?
Kohli, however, has yet to clarify his plans publicly. His status remains unclear, which adds a layer of uncertainty to the national team equation for that South Africa series.
What's the board's rationale here? Why insist on domestic cricket for such established stars?
Well, the board's rationale seems strategically sound, and it really speaks to institutional governance and planning. The mandate aims to ensure these key players maintain match sharpness and fitness.
Right.
It prevents them having long competitive gaps between international series, which is a major concern when you're preparing for a big quadrennial event like the World Cup. You need your best players match fit.
And the chief selector has backed this.
Yes. Chief Selector Ajit Agarkar has consistently reiterated this stance that domestic participation is absolutely essential for maintaining the required competitive standards for all players, regardless of their legendary status or past achievements.
And we saw a hint of this kind of accountability before, didn't we? After a disappointing Test series loss a while back.
We did. Following a tough Border-Gavaskar Trophy performance against Australia some time ago, both Kohli and Rohit briefly returned to play in the Ranji Trophy, the domestic first-class competition, before they formally retired from the longer formats later on.
So this current directive feels like the BCCI trying to balance respect for its senior players, especially someone like Rohit, who actually had strong recent ODI form, scoring a 50 in a century against Australia.
Right. His form wasn't the issue.
Balancing that respect with clear performance benchmarks and the need for competitive continuity. The question isn't about whether they're talented, it's about current demonstrated readiness.
Exactly. By making domestic participation a clear precondition for selection, the BCCI is setting a firm precedent for managing veteran talent within the national setup. It ensures that selection decisions remain rooted in demonstrated current match readiness, not just reputation. It's a strong governance move.
Okay, we've spent this deep dive wrestling with a lot of immediate, pressing terrestrial challenges: security, politics, economics.
Yeah.
But let's conclude by looking much, much further afield, far beyond Earth, focusing on the third known interstellar visitor to our solar system, Comet 3IATS.
Ah, yes, 3ILS, discovered just last July by NASA's ATIAS telescope system.
And the observation of this comet has sparked significant debate, even controversy, hasn't it? Especially regarding what happened after its perihelion, its closest approach to the sun.
That's right. New images captured recently by British astronomers revealed evidence suggesting the comet underwent a dramatic, rapid fragmentation event around that time.
What did they see exactly?
They observed a massive anti-tail that's material pointing towards the sun, which is unusual, and also extensive gas jets stretching out for literally millions of kilometers from the comet's nucleus. Its behavior has been extremely unpredictable, really challenging conventional scientific models of how comets work.
And this unusual behavior led to a highly controversial hypothesis put forth by Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb.
Yes, Avi Loeb, who you might remember, also had controversial ideas about Oumuamua, the first interstellar object detected. Loeb argues that the intense solar heating experienced by 3ILS during its perihelion likely caused a catastrophic breakup, a fragmentation.
Okay, fragmentation isn't necessarily controversial for comets, is it? They can break up.
True, but Loeb detailed his reasoning using the physics, specifically the scale of the event. He calculated that the immense mass loss observed, which apparently rose sharply from a relatively normal, maybe 150 kilograms per second back in August,
150 kilograms.
viewed unprecedented nearly 2 million kilograms per second around perihelion.
Wait, from 150 kilos a second to 2 million kilos a second? That jump is astronomical. That's, what, a factor of over 13,000 times increase in mass loss?
Precisely. Loeb argued that this incredible rate of mass loss simply cannot be explained by the size of a conventional natural cometary surface area absorbing solar energy and outgassing. The numbers just don't add up based on its estimated size.
So what's his explanation?
He calculated that the actual absorbing or emitting area must have been far, far larger than previously estimated. This implies either the comet fragmented into at least 16 major pieces, massively increasing the surface area exposed to the sun.
Okay, multiple fragments.
Or, potentially, that the object was perhaps far larger and much less dense, more fragile than a typical comet we see from our own solar system. But this is where Loeb, characteristically, throws down the gauntlet.
Here comes the controversial part.
Yes. Echoing his earlier speculation about Oumuamua, Loeb suggested that if conventional natural explanations for these immense jets ultimately fail to account for the observed energy, then the sheer scale of the activity could imply the object is actually a technological object. Perhaps, he speculates, an alien spacecraft employing thrusters for propulsion or navigation rather than just random cometary outgassing.
Wow. That is the ultimate scientific provocation, isn't it? Challenging the default assumption that everything we see in space is a purely natural phenomenon.
It is. Now, to be clear, natural fragmentation due to thermal stress remains the most plausible scientific explanation for most researchers. But the scale of the activity observed with 3ILS is truly unprecedented for a comet of its estimated initial size.
Loeb argues that technological thrusters would actually require far less mass loss than what was observed to produce the same effect, right?
That's part of his argument, yes. Presenting a scenario where advanced directed propulsion might look different from just random gas venting from a tumbling rock. This uncertainty, fueled by the extreme data, forces scientists to at least consider the extraordinary, even if they ultimately favor the natural explanation.
Okay. For now, is this comet any threat to Earth?
No, none whatsoever. Its closest approach to Earth will be around December 19th, but it will still be quite far away, about 1.8 astronomical units. That's almost twice the distance from the Earth to the Sun.
Okay, but the fragmentation, the controversy, it's made it a priority target for observation now.
Absolutely. Scientists are prepping for detailed monitoring. Upcoming observations using the Hubble Space Telescope and, crucially, the James Webb Space Telescope are expected later this year or early next.
What are they hoping to find?
They hope to clarify its true status. Is it an intact, albeit highly unusual and unpredictable natural object? Or is the fragmentation theory confirmed? And if it is fragmented, studying those fragments could give us unprecedented clues about the composition and nature of objects formed beyond our own solar system. It challenges everything we think we know about cometary science, and maybe even the prevalence of exotic phenomena in the galaxy. #tag outro.
We have certainly covered tremendous ground today, moving from the almost microscopic detail, the specific royalty rate for cesium, for instance.
Right down in the weeds there.
All the way out to the immense controversial tale of the interstellar comet 3ITs. We've analyzed the hard numbers of the Bihar election projections, the specifics of India's dual-pronged economic response to those U.S. tariffs, and that really interesting structural shift that has pushed female employability past male employability for the first time in the skills report.
And our deep dive today really reveals, yet again, how tightly interconnected these seemingly disparate global events truly are. You know, the security concern over a Turkey-based terror handler is, in a way, linked to the national drive for economic independence, which in turn requires internal workforce development, strategic resource pricing for minerals, all while the country manages internal accountability through things like judicial transparency directives and even cricket board mandates. Every single data point we discussed today, from RDF's traces to royalty percentages, is essential for that comprehensive understanding.
So what is the ultimate consequence of all this interconnectedness for you, our listener? Here's a thought to leave you with. Given that India is simultaneously tackling foreign-backed terror threats traced back years, optimizing its critical mineral supply to counter global monopolies, and seeing a policy shift in the U.S. specifically aimed at extracting knowledge via temporary visas for America's domestic benefit. What then is the ultimate realistic timeline for India achieving full technological and economic independence in a world that's fundamentally defined by shared skill flow, shared threats, and the inescapable reality of global interdependence?
We'll leave you with that provocative thought for reflection. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material.
We'll catch you next time.